fine. We're in Kufid Gimel, the Ramah, Halacha Zayin. For Halacha Zayin, no problem. Okay, the Mechaber had said that the coolers of a pas that you could just light the fire does not look by Bishul. That was last time that those things don't look by Bishul. But the Ramah says V'yesh Cholkim. The Ramah says there are those who argue with Yisroel that Lakas Ha'esh or Chita B'Kachol Mahani L'Inyan Bishul K'moed L'Inyan Pas, that lighting the fire or stoking the coals works for Bishul also, just like it works for Pas V'Chei Noig, and that's our minute to be make about that. Then the Ramah says about Fiu Chita B'Loi Kavana Mahani Umoil. Also, if you do the chitur shaloi b'kavana, that's also good. We'll talk about that in a second. Even if the yid did his stirring of the coals shaloi b'kavana, it's good. And then he says v'yeshemim nachakula dafilu chitur Yisroel for hishlach shalom kisem. Even if the yid didn't stir the coals and he didn't even do hashachas kisem, which would also work for Bishul Yisroel. That's what the Rambam means to say. Rak shav k'chav mehidla ka'esh me'esh Yisroel. Sorry. All that happened was the guy lit a fire from a yid's fire. The yid did nothing to this fire. The Ramah says that's also mutter. So the Ramah says a whole bunch of coolers that not only does Bishul Yisroel have the same coolers as Pas Yisroel, even more associated, even other coolers we haven't heard yet, Eish Me'esh, also works, and all those are fine. Okay? Just for a minute to talk about the stirring Shloi B'Kavana. It was really merumas in a din earlier. It was in Halacha Dalet. The Ramah was merumas about it also. And I'm just going to stick in that there are those who argue on the Ramah. The Ramah says, it's a dig from Mishnah, if the yid stirs a shloi b'kavana, it's good enough. The halacha and Chadalad it says, if a guy cooks in a yid's house, the food is b'diavad okay, because for sure somebody walked by and stirred the pot. Some yid must have walked by and stirred the pot. So the Ramah, which is coming from him, Mordechai says, he didn't do it to make it Bishul Yisroel, he was just stirring the pot for whatever reason to do it. So you see that you can do it shloi b'kavana. And others argue.
You're Muhammad to cook.
Yeah, so I mean nothing to do with mitzvah.
Kavon is a machlokes, but that you're cooking and you have to stir it.
Okay, so that's what the Ramah holds. What's the difference? As long as I participate. So I'll just tell you. I don't know if it's exactly if it's right or wrong, but Rabbi Ganak said pshat like this. This is how we learn pshat. He said those who hold that the yid has to do kavana hold that the yid's participation is to make a hecker. He says, you can't make a hecker unless you know what you're trying to do. As I say, you have a fire you made, and I'm going to do something to make a hecker, therefore, so I have to do the kavana. Without realizing it, I can't be making a hecker. That's how we understood it. As opposed to the Ramah, he thought that the Ramah holds that when the yid stirs the fire, it becomes the yid's fire. If I had a little part, it's my fire. My fire, I don't have to, like you said, I don't have to mitzvah sichas kavana to make it my fire. If I want to make a hecker, then I have to be more understanding what I'm doing. Okay? That's what he said.
Like the light bulbs.
Right, but whether that's, Lamai says, Pasha says everybody holds that it's a hecker. But okay, let's leave that. That's not our thing. Okay. What the main things we want to talk about is that the Ramah, the last part the Ramah said is the most supposed to be practical, which is if the guy lights fire from the Jews' fire, what we call Eish Me'esh, that's considered Bishul Yisroel. I don't know what the Ramah had in mind in his days. I don't know what that was, what practically was, but for us it's very practical. Okay, we have pilot lights. Okay, that is to say, what? Right, I guess it could happen. I'm saying it didn't seem like a day-to-day kind of thing that would happen all the time. For us, it is a very practical thing, and that is like this. The way most cooking things and boilers and ovens work is the fire doesn't get lit into this huge fire instantly. What you do is you first make a small fire or a spark or something, and from that you light the bigger fire. That's how you do the lighting, for whatever reason. So in most things, let's say in my home, in my stovetop, that little fire, what they call the pilot, is temporary. It only goes on when you need to light up. It goes on for a second when you need to light up, and then it goes out. Okay, but there's such a thing called a standing pilot. That's what's to get to us, which is a pilot that stays on 24/7. It's always on. If the yid lights that pilot, then it will potentially make the food. Then the guy, when he lights up the whole oven, will make it Bishul Yisroel. It'll still be Bishul Yisroel because he's lighting his eish from the yid's fire.
Okay, there's another major shilik.
Yeah.
Another major thing is, which they mentioned at the Echo, is the guy was more the problem with the Schwameth machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I looked into it. Because the time that, the question is, there's 6 flames on a Schwameth. On a Schwameth machine, there are 6 knobs, 3 on each side. Okay. So Moshe went in this week to Mizrahi Grill, so it was right after the invention. I said, okay, let me go investigate. The Yid turns them on all 6 in the morning. While they're cooking, depending if they're not busy, the guy doesn't want it to burn, he can turn off 4 of them, maximum. And then, if one stays on, as soon as you turn on another knob, it takes it off that fire.
Okay, very good.
So then it's
Okay.
Meish,
Yes,
so you don't have a
good.
problem.
What he said was that someone at the convention said that by the shawarma it cooks just one layer at a time, and if it's quiet for a couple of hours, they'll just turn off the oven off completely.
I'm sorry, most of us have never seen a shawarma machine in my life.
You've never seen it? Okay.
But it's an upright broiler. That's what it is. It's an upright
So the fire's on
broiler.
the side and the walls on
And
the
then the
side.
sides are on the sides.
And there's a huge hunk of meat just sitting on there.
And the hunk of meat twirls around it, and that's how it cooks, okay?
Okay.
And it cooks a layer at a time. As soon as that layer is done, either they cut it off the biz. If not, they push the fire back, okay? They push the thing out, further away from the fire.
How you push a fire?
It has wheels. The thing has wheels on it. The whole the top mechanism.
The fire, the
They it moves it away from the fire.
Oh, you don't move the fire.
Automatically?
No, they do it by hand. And then, if that's not enough, they turn off some of the flames because they don't need it to be so hot. They just want it to be warm. But when they go to turn it on,
So there's always a heat there. So
So the person who was speaking said they turn off all the fires as if the whole thing goes off.
it could start to get cold.
Right, and he's saying is that no, it'll get cold very quickly. It's an open ear. There's no chamber even.
Yeah.
He's saying is that they don't turn it completely off. They only turn off most of
they
them.
don't. They
Fine.
don't turn off
Okay.
all of them because that's
So
what
why are you saying it's HVAC? So there's one fire is always on.
because 3 separate knobs, so it's 3 separate
But he's saying
fires.
even if not, but at least the fire is still there anyhow. Even if
Yeah,
the lights and
but it's like a pile light. It takes it all from there.
Yeah, but it's different. So here the H is the massive missile. Yeah, it's not like a pipeline which is over here and the fire is over there, and you put the part over there.
Okay, we're going to get to that in a second because hopefully you'll explain
The
it.
CSC policy they're trying to make is that Eish Ma'esh, we should be machmir to be saimach on a pile light is not like a tchila. But when the pilot, there's 2 types of pile lights. One type of pilot is in the middle of the stove and it connects this way. Then there's a pilot light on each individual burner where that is fine because that's part of the fire.
Both of you are going to explain that to me in a second. We're getting to there, okay? So I'm going to call it. Okay. So now, the first question we have to talk about, there's 2 parts to the question about a pilot. One is halachic shilos, one group of halachic shilos, and then another practical questions, okay? The first halachic shilos is like this. Could you be some, it says here, the Ramah says, you could do Eish Me'esh. It's fine. You can do it. Okay, the Ramah is saying you can do it. It's B'chatchila. The Ramah comes from an Isser V'heter. The Isser V'heter says it only b'diavad. He doesn't say you can do it B'chatchila. So a number of Achronim, after the Ramah, say, this din that the Ramah says you could be Samach on Eish Me'esh, it's the only time you're allowed to be Samach is if it's b'diavad. If it's B'chatchila, you're not allowed, for B'chatchila you're not allowed to be Samach. Okay? Some will hold like that. The Ramah does not say like that. Others who are brought to hold not like that. There's an earlier Shach, and there's who agree with the Ramah is, I forgot who else. A number of other Achronim who hold like the Ramah, that it's mutter even L'chatchila. Okay, and there are those who hold not like that. So that's a question.
They hold the Ramah holds its only video, or they hold...
No, the Ramah doesn't say that.
Right.
The Ramah says you could do it. Okay, they say is the Ramah is coming from Nisa V'heter, and therefore you can only do it b'diavad, you can't do it L'chatchila. Okay, Rabbi Haber showed me in Dallas that the Mishnah Berurah bringing the Magen Avram sounds like he holds it's only b'diavad. I don't want to use the word b'diavad. It's second choice. But the Mishnah Berurah is talking about during Asher Shmei Tshuva you're supposed to eat Pas Yisroel. So he says, and if you can't light the fire yourself, then at least you should do one of these kulas. Okay? So he's saying at least as if it's a second choice, as if it's not the first choice. Okay? So that's a question whether it's l'chatchila or b'diavad. That's a halachic shaila. Lamai says I think that most people hold it's even l'chatchila. People prefer when they have a choice, like in a restaurant, there's mashgiach there to not be some mechana. Okay? If they have a choice, they prefer not to. I don't think that's the din, but they try to just be what?
I don't understand what you just said.
Okay.
If there's a mashgiach there,
I mean, in a restaurant,
Yeah.
okay, where you are, okay, you're there all the time. So we say, why rely on a pilot that it might only be okay with the evid? Tell the mashgiach to light all the fires. Okay, in other words, if you have someone standing there, why be samach on this thing which some hold as a b'diavad when we could do it l'chatchila? As opposed to if you're in a place that has no mashgiach, or you go in a factory, we rely on it, we do it, no problem. We're samach on it because really I think the din is that it is mutter, even l'chatchila. Okay, but there are those who say, if you have a mashgiach standing there anyhow, let the mashgiach light the fires, don't do the eish me'esh. Okay, now, another shayla. Well, now there's a compromise, which the 2 of you mentioned, which I don't understand, which is to say that the only time you don't rely on the pilot with l'chatchila is when the pilot is away from the fire, okay, which is the normal thing. The pilot's over here, and the fire is a few inches over, or it's in the middle and it spreads for all of them. But if the pilot is underneath the fire, like on a wok, that's where it's common. With the wok has a circle of flames like this, and in the middle of them is one, which is the pilot that stays on all the time. Then they say, no problem. That's fine. Everyone agrees that's okay. Okay? Now, I heard two hesberim, maybe you have more. I was asking people, why is that fire any different? I heard two hesberim for why it should be okay, neither of which I understand. The first one is that the little fire that's under there is enough to cook with. Since the little fire, it's right there on the food. It's not on the side. It's right there by the food. And since it's by the food, it's enough to cook with. And if it's enough to cook with, so it's not eish me'esh, it's a cooking fire. Okay? What I don't see in the battle is that it's going to be the next halacha. It's coming in one of the common halachas. Oh yeah, halacha yud says that if the yid if the guy puts food on, the yid puts food onto a fire that cannot cook this food, kamach ben drusoi. Okay, that, no matter what, the fire is too small to cook kamach ben drusoi, not bishul Yisroel. The guy then builds up the fire, it's not bishul Yisroel. Now, the people said, no, but you could cook an egg on this little fire on the wok. You might be able to cook an egg, but you can't cook the dish that you put into there. You won't cook beans. You can't get anything. You put all the food. The wok holds a whole bunch of food. You can't cook anything on that fire. But you could cook an egg. What does cooking an egg have to do with it? You know,
I think the way a wok works is that you only cook a small amount at a time and you push everything else aside.
Yes, but
So what? No.
Look at a big soup pot over here.
No, soup. So a wok. A wok is the way that decides that you cook something and then you have the ability to push it off its side, so it's not
It's
cooking.
irrelevant. It's irrelevant because what he's saying, and I understand you, because I understand the wok. What he's saying is, it's irrelevant what this fire can do at different times. Right now, if you put in your meat and your beans and whatever,
the amount of food, even the amount of food you put into the middle, are not going to cook on the little pilot. It's just the pilot. As big as you make it, it's just the pilot.
The way I was trying to say is that you have a smaller amount of food being cooked at one time. Therefore, it could be that the small like.
so for that small amount of works.
Okay, that's what I'm saying.
What he's saying is that if you put in the bigger amount, it doesn't work, so it doesn't help.
Okay, that was yes, correct. One. The other version of why it should be better is because since the fire is part of the main fires, I mean it's integrated with all the rest of the fires. Therefore, it's like hashlachas kisei. Okay? Therefore, it's not eish be'eish. It's hashlachas kisei. The yid's fire is part of the guy's fire. That's like hashlachas kisei, and therefore that's okay. That was the other version. Now, the problems with that are, I'm not saying that that's wrong, but the problems with that are first of all, is the Ramah here who said all these kulas, okay, either they're lechatchil or they're b'diavad. Okay, I didn't tell you this, but the Mishnah Berurah, or the Magen Avraham, who says that this is only second class, he's not talking about eish me'esh. He's talking about hashlachas kisei. He said either the yid should bake the bread, or he should do hashlachas kisei. That was the second choice. Was not eish me'esh. The second choice was hashlachas kisei. He should throw a piece of it into the fire. He said so. That's the second choice. I mean, this is all one group. Either you think this group of kulas is lechatchila or it's b'diavad. So you switched yourself over from eish me'esh to hashlachas kisei. What's the difference?
No, I'll tell you. I have it.
How does what apply today? Throw in the food? Throw something in?
Oh, I thought you were talking about wood.
Yeah, well, you put anything. Do anything that contributes to the fire.
Oh, you mean, no, to the fire.
To the fire.
So what, turning the knob up a little?
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. So
But the shachar is not shachas kisei. We don't say it's b'diavad.
the Ramah said both of them are not b'diavad. The Ramah also says it. He says hashlachas kisei and eish me'esh.
And was the shachar about eish me'esh not lechatchila? I don't think so.
I'm trying to remember if it's over. Wait a second. It's in.
What did the shachar say about eish me'esh?
But I can tell you a feeling between the shlachas kisei and the fire.
Good to know you won't be a shachas kisei, maybe. I couldn't trust it is a shachas kisei.
No, the reason I say the difference, it's better than a shlachas kisei. A shlachas kisei means you're throwing in a toothpick,
Yeah.
right? And it burns and it's gone. It's gone.
Yeah, it's
it's
true.
Only,
It's
it's really the age of the book. Over here, if this pile becomes a chelik or a fire, then that fire is there the whole time. There's a big
No,
Yeah, but don't make it a lot.
Wait a second. If the guy, no, wait a second. No. If I made a little fire and the guy put on a lot of wood onto it, I would hear what you're saying. This is my fire, and he added fuel to my fire. That's not what's going on here. It's not like the other fires are part of this fire. Come on. We're calling them together, but the pilot's here, and the rest of the fire is around it. It's not like
No,
it's
the pilot becomes part of that fire. It's not around it.
Okay.
It's there. It's a chelik of it. It becomes one fire.
It is a matter of balance. In halacha, it's true, it's a chiluk. But now in halacha, I don't think it makes a difference.
Okay.
But I want to say it could be better than a shlochas kisei. He's asking Kashrus, and I think it could be better.
Okay.
The whole time of shachas kisei, Mr.
I wasn't-
Yes, what you just saying, I don't know. wouldn't it apply what you're saying only when there's a pot on the fire, above the fire? Because then they melt all the fires together.
Okay, maybe.
Where
Okay, now another thing.
just the pilot and the fire.
Good.
Maybe
That's what you done.
Another thing is, no, I'm about to say that part, which is that if you want to say this is Hashlachas Kisim, you have to remember that some people hold, this is not what we hold, but there are some people hold that Hashlachas Kisim has to happen after the guy made his fire. Right? They hold that you can. That's why they don't like glow bars. You can only do it after the made his fire first. Okay. Now it's the same people who are saying you should do the wok are the ones who hold like that also. This is the same people. So if you want to, you say it's better because it's Hashlachas Kisim. Well, you hold that Hashlachas Kisim. You hold that Hashlachas Kisim has to happen after the guy's fire. That's not what happens over here. Okay. And the wok is worse. The reason why wok is worse is because it seems, I'm not a cook, that they turn the woks off when they finish cooking them. It's not like a stove.
All restaurants. And all woks, they finish the dish, they turn off the fire.
Okay, fine.
No fire.
Fine. And then one last halachic shayla we have to get through before we go to
does not turn it off.
before we get to the practical is a wok. It's just a special kind of pot. Okay. Well, Moshe will show us pictures.
Big fire.
Okay. And the other kind is the other shayla is we talked about this in Kufiyud Beis, which is when we say that a yid can do something that lasts. Is there a time that it expires? Does it only last for a certain amount of time? Does it sort of have to be relit every so often? Like we talked about in Kufiyud Beis, that most hold that no, it lasts forever. That we talked back over there, that maybe there's such a tzad that it only lasts it has a certain amount of time. It expires after a certain amount of time. Okay. So let's assume we've passed the halachic shayla. But we have the practical shayla is much more lamaisa. It's much more serious, let us say, in that way, which is like this. If we have a pilot, okay, we count, the Yid lit all the pilots in the morning, there were 5 pilots in the place, he lit all the pilots. And there's a mashgiach in the restaurant. So he lights the pilots. If a pilot goes out, his job is to keep an eye on what's going on. If a pilot goes out, he relights it. And if the pilot goes out and the mashgiach doesn't catch it, then the kitchen workers are trained to call the rabbi. If they were to relight that pilot, they've been caught doing something very bad. So therefore, they say to the rabbi, hey, rabbi, come over here from the other room and light my pilot for me. It's within reason the mashgiach has a control that it gets lit. Okay? That's within reason, and depending on how good the mashgiach is doing his job, he can have control of it. Okay? But what happens in a place that has no mashgiach in it? Okay? And we don't have that. Okay? We don't have a place that needs Bishul, so one of the reasons we insist on a mashgiach is to make sure it's Bishul Yisroel. Okay? Our places, that's why we do it. But lots of places in more removed communities don't have mashgiach tamidi. So what happens is the Yid lights the pilot on Sunday, okay, and the pilot now is going to be lit all week from that Yid. What happens when the pilot goes out at 5 o'clock at night one night, they're about to serve supper, and the pilot goes out? Okay, so now, there's no mashgiach to even ask to relight the fire. There's no one even there to say that. So what you have to, what we're counting on is that the chef is going to pick up the phone and wait for an hour till the rabbi shows up to relight his fire. There's 50 people sitting out there waiting for supper. So it's hard to believe that the chef is going to really wait for the mashgiach. And these pilots are not like a pilot in your house that stays on for a year at a time. Because of the busyness and the spilling and things like that going on in the kitchen, they go out often enough. If they go out more often, then how could we be simulchaned for Bishul Yisroel when it's going to go out? And when it goes out, there isn't even something to turn to. At least if there's a mashgiach there, we can at least assume he's afraid of the mashgiach, or he's been trained to call the mashgiach. But here, calling the mashgiach means waiting for 2 hours. Who knows when the guy's going to show up? Okay, to come light his fire. So,
and then he's going to give hashgacha anyway, the sort of fleshik there also.
So, depending, there's different versions of how to do this. Some people only do it for milchiks. Some people will do it with fleshiks, and they have what they call a roving mashgiach.
Rabbi,
I mean, they have,
I want to break a misconception here, and that is that it's not only when the mashgiach is not there, that we're worried that the chef is not going to call him. We don't have to worry. We know Vada is not calling him, but even when the mashgiach is in the kitchen itself, the chef turns on the fire, lights himself.
okay. So the...
I presume the mashgiachim should be trained that whenever they have a moment free, they should just go ahead and light the fires.
Yes, so that is a good idea, especially if you don't have a mashgiach. That the mashgiachim should be relighting pilots every so often in case of the
pilot lights are broken.
Okay, now...
When you put the pot...
Well, I'll tell the mashgiach, take off all the pots, take them off for a
holes.
second, put them back on.
It plugs the holes. That's the problem. That's why
So
the highlights are off.
so there are places that have either no mashgiach at all, or they have like a roving mashgiach. There's one mashgiach assigned to 5 places, and each one he gives it an hour or 2 a day. But so that Mashiach is sort of on call, meaning if you call him and you need him, he's in the area. He has a certain area. Okay, yeah.
I shouldn't ask questions.
No, I didn't say you shouldn't ask questions.
No,
I didn't. Rega, I didn't say you shouldn't ask questions. That's not what we're focused on. Okay, we're just dealing with the Shlachim. Okay, how they run the Hashkacha, that's their own, Okay.
I should have written it down.
So Lamaisa is, so one way of looking at it is like, which is sort of, which is what we say, which is, are you crazy? It's going to go out. If it's going to go out, you can't just give Mashiach. And therefore, we turn down, how many Indian restaurants have we turned down? Well, they're all vegetarian, okay? So that you easily could be kosher. How many have them we turned down? Because we tell them you have to have a Mashiach Tzmidi. And of course, they don't want to do that. That's the good reason why these places get turned down, okay? But in other places, they rely on this. So the question is there something to be samach? Okay? So what turns out is like this. So first of all, I have to give a piece of practical information, okay, which is that it seems that there are two types of pilots, two types of standing pilots. Some of them are covered or protected. Okay? Think about it. The most dramatic example is on a flat top. Okay? It's just a sheet of metal like you have by the cassia, a flat glass, and underneath there's someplace under that sheet of metal is the pilot. Okay? Now those pilots, I can't say they never go out, but they can go months without going out. Okay? Because there's nothing that can blow them out. There's no spillage or something that gets there. What?
Unless the gas...
Okay, I'm saying there isn't kitchen things that go on that will blow out that fire. Okay? And even on some stoves and some deep fryers, they could be more covered and shielded. Okay? But other ones have them exposed. They're out for everyone to see. And then, as soon as there's a spill, that can go out. Okay, so one thing is you have to look at your pilot and say, what kind of pilot do I have? If I have a pilot that's protected or shielded, then I'm on safer ground. Okay, that's much more stable that it's going to stay on. Okay? But Shiloh says this, what happens when we have the exposed one, which is common on stovetops? So the thing is like this. We're going to see in Halach Yud Aleph, the Mechaber, and the Ramah is going to even be stronger, says that if a person has a suffix of Bishul, okay, and his example of a suffix of Bishul is, the din is going to be mutter. Suffix Bishul is mutter. And the example is, you left the guy cooking food, you lit the fire, you left the guy cooking food, and you came back, and the food had been flipped over, and there's two ways that you can flip it over. You can flip it over with derech heter or derech iser. Well, what the shayla is not important for us now. Okay, but there's two ways that it could have gone. He could have done it beheter or be'isser. The din is that it's mutter. Why? It's a suffix drabanan, l'kula, and the food is mutter. Okay? Because you say it's a suffix b'shlakim is mutter. Okay? That's for suffix. That's going to be in a couple of halachas. Okay? In a halacha to before what we're at to now, the Beis Yosef says like this. He says, you should know, what you're going to see in a couple of halachas that it's mutter b'diavad, that's only for the case that's over there. If you have a case, his case is a shvud, it's not negate us what the case is, a case where it's osui, that's his word, it's common that there's going to be a problem, and the guy will do it in the wrong way, the Beis Yosef says, then there's no suffix drabanan l'kula over there. We're not mekel and say that it's mutter because it's so common to happen, we can't be mekel. That's what the Beis Yosef says. And on that, Dr. Moshe says on that, he says, I don't know if I'm getting the exact words here, but something along the lines of, Ma'oid hichmir b'davar zeh hachmir b'suffix drabanan. Okay? In other words, the Ramah says, the Dr. Moshe says, it's true that case is worse, but it's only suffix drabanan. So the Beis Yosef is being very machmir to be choishish for that case over here, and we should go with the rule of suffix drabanan l'kula, and maybe that's medulik what the Ramah says when the Ramah in Halach Yud Aleph, that suffix says, after saying that it's mutter, he says, v'chein kol suffix b'shuvi av k'chavim is mutter, is maybe the kol is to stress that even if it's leaning towards the side that it should be usher, there's more reason to think it's mutter. So potentially, that Dr. Moshe, the Ramah, is the basis of being samach over here. So I asked a couple people, this wasn't a very scientific survey, but it came out that even the exposed pilots, each individual one, this is an unscientific survey, goes out approximately once every 2 weeks. Okay, it gets blown out. That is to say, if I have 5 of them, that means every 3 days I'm going to get one blown out, right? I mean, every 2 days I'm going to get one blown out, okay? From my unscientific survey, okay? This is what came out. So there is a suffix. The suffix leans towards saying that you're not allowed to do it, right? The pasha, it's happening commonly enough. That means in a week, 3 pilots might go out in the place. That means, so that's pretty bad news. But the document says, even in case when it's also to happen, it's okay. And especially if we throw in Davids, we'll have the Mashiach light all the time. The Mashiach coming 2-3 times a week, blow out all the pilots and start again. There's maybe something to work with. Okay, maybe there's something to work with. We're trying to explain why this is very common. Not here in Chicago, but it's common. Okay, and that people have no Mashiach in the place. And so we're trying to explain what the basis for that sheet is. Okay? And to throw in two other eights for whatever they're worth. Okay? I'm just saying that the shiloh of it and why it might be potentially mutter is Yankee's idea, which is he tells people to put in a Shiva candle. You know, they have the 7-day candles. So he tells Mashgiach light a Shiva candle on Sunday morning in the restaurant. And this way, that's not going to prevent it's not going to prevent
any place with a Shiva candle.
Because you only give hashgacha in places with Mashgiach. He says, I know places that do it out of town. What they do is, this way, if the pilot goes out, at least the guy could light it from away from Shishon. In other words, he's easily collided from someplace else. But when I said to you, the Mashiach's not going to show for 2 hours, at least he has a place to get it from the heter. Okay, so they hide all the matches and they say, if you need a fire, light it from there. So at least
every guy to be mumble at the open.
But we'll give him at least a chance. Okay, whatever it is. And Rabbi Lubein said to me, just a few days before the conference, he says he would say to tell people, nowadays they put in a webcam. And if you want to make a mirror system, they should be afraid to relight the fires. You put in a webcam, whatever. I mean, that's cheaper than a Mashiach tweeting. Okay.
That doesn't help because even if the cam is watching, they got the 50 people waiting out there. In spite of the cam, they're going to do it.
No, he'll cheat once. But if you say to the guy, if you ever light the fires, we're going to close you down and we're going to stop our hashgacha, then you're creating a fear he's afraid to get caught. So you're right. I'm not saying one time he might not ruin it, but if you catch him, then you'll be able to be more serious. He'll be afraid of you because if he breaks the rules.
I don't understand that.
I start
really don't.
suffering
He's got 50 people waiting, and the light goes out, and it's a choice between lighting it or waiting for the mashgiach. He's going to light it.
You're right.
Cam or no cam. 1 time, 2 times, 10 times.
No, if he lights it once, because it's an emergency, and the mashgiach who checks the webcam comes to tell, listen, Jack, I saw you light the fire. So your webcam, the next time you do it, you're out of a job. He ain't doing it even if he has 50 people.
Because he's the owner. He's not out of the job.
So you say, well, we'll close you down. We won't give hashgacha anymore. We'll drop the hashgacha. So
Listen, the guy has 50 people sitting out there. If he doesn't feed those people on time, he's not going to have a job anyway.
The issue is something else. The issue is that in most cases, he always has where to take the fire off. Because if he
Yeah,
has...
you should have something on
No,
that.
because if he has a stove,
the fire.
he's got
Take one of
another
the top
pilot.
ones. Okay.
There's another pilot. There's
Okay.
always another pilot. And what they do is, Moshe, listen, I'm going here. I don't have to go out of town. I don't need a shiva candle. What they do is, and this the Shiloh is this called Eish. What is this? The guy doesn't have a fire. His pilot light doesn't work. It's broken. And I tell him, listen, I'm not going to cook. Right? Okay, I'm going to fix it. Sometimes it gets fixed in 24 hours. Sometimes it doesn't. The guy needs the fire. He takes his frying pan, gives it a clap on the other fire, and schleps it this way. And that's how the light. He lights the
Okay.
other flame.
Wait, what's it do? What do you do, Mr.?
He takes the frying
But
pan
that's
on
winter, isn't
the
it?
back fire,
Yeah.
and he drags it to the front.
it's just
The
dragging
gas
some of
is
the
on,
fire with it.
and the gas catches that fire.
Oh, really?
But that's mutter, isn't it?
That would be mutter. Yeah. Okay. Now one last.
Why is that his
Sounds good to me. Okay. One last I was like this. Okay. One last question. The Ramah said that he mentioned a number of kulas that you could do even by Bishul Yisroel, which was Eish Be'esh, Hashachas Kisem. He had a few kulas here that you could do. The Machaber said, no, it's only for Pas. And he says, no, these bunch are also for Bishul also. Okay. There's one other kula that it happens to say in Kufi Beis. Okay? And the question is whether that kula applies to Kufi Gimel also. Okay. Which is, the Machaber said a din that if you light a fire, you light a fire, and the fire goes out, completely goes out. And the oven stays warm, and then a guy comes and lights a new fire. Is that considered the Yid's fire? The Machaber said it is. If the oven stayed warm, that's considered a Yid's fire. And we talked about what the details of that din are. Okay? That question is, does that kula apply to Bishul also? It happens to say it by Pas. Does that apply to here also? Okay? So the simple thing, my understanding was, that the Ramah says all the kulas of Pas apply to Bishul also, and that one also, we can sit and list everyone, that one also applies to everyone. So it's common, that one is common in a bakery oven, so it's said in Kufi Beis, but it will apply by Kufi Gimel also. What's the difference? Pas or Bishul should be the same thing. Yeah, but somebody said to us over the past few days that no, it only applies to Pas, it's not by Bishul. Okay? That kula doesn't apply by Bishul. Okay, now, there's a very serious nafkamina to what they were saying. I don't think they realized what they were saying, which is like this. Nowadays, every modern oven is soymech on that. Why? When you turn on your oven, you turn on the fire to 350. When it hits 350, the fire goes off. So the Mashiach comes in the morning, turns on all the ovens. Great. 15 minutes later, all the fires go out when they hit the temperature. So if the fire goes out when they hit the temperature, so that's the end of the Bishul Yisroel. So the reason why it's mutter is because, the din over there is, as long as it stays warm, which of course it does, as long as it stays warm, it's a continuation of the Yid's fire. So it stays warm and it's a continuation of the fire. If you say that
Doesn't apply.
that the Yid, that thing of staying warm doesn't apply after the Yid thing is over, then what's going to happen in every oven is not going to be Yisroel. Now, there is a way out. Okay?
Boil
But
everything.
there is a way out, but they're for sure not going to like this. There is a way out. Because there's another way of looking at it. I told you that an oven is Bishul Yisroel because if I light the fire, it stays warm the whole time. It continues the Yid's action. There are others who look at it, I think we talked about this then, that say, since I turned it on, everything that happens in the normal halach yerich of this oven is considered my doing. I mean, in the Machaber's case in Kufy Beis, the reason why the fire went out, the whole thing is over. If the fire is out, the new lighting only considered my fire if it stayed warm. But in our case, when you turn on the oven, you set in motion the entire day's worth of cooking. The fact that the fires go on and off, that's just part of the normal course of events. That's the way it works.
So then why have a convection oven?
In Cain, if you're going to say like that, in Cain, so then a convection oven also. A convection oven also. I turn on the fire in the morning, then I open and close the doors. That's part of the normal halach of the oven. Then it goes on and off. Just instead of cycling off based on temperature.
The convention oven, you were doing, someone is doing a pu'ul of shutting it off.
Okay.
Glad that when you close it, the heat through the thing.
Why does it go on? No, Rega. Why does it go on when I close the door? You're right. It's a little bit different.
Closing the door is, I'm doing a new thing.
No.
Close the door,
Excuse me. When I open the door, the knob doesn't go back to zero. When I close the door, I'm saying, take away...
Akron was done by the guy who closes the door.
Yeah, I know it's not exactly the same, but Lamais is the reason why it's working is because someone turned it on in the morning. Now there was an interruption to that, and now it's coming back. It's coming back on. But it's okay. So you can argue. You can argue. You say no, it's different there because it really goes out and it's over. Okay, but I would say is if you're going to say my action in the morning, my turning it on is whatever happens the rest of the day is considered my
Well,
my
the companies we do that with the boilers, right?
Yes.
So we
Same thing. Same thing.
But when nobody changes anything. The whole thing of the boiler, whenever
There's no interruption.
Wait,
go down.
Yes. So therefore, my action in the morning set in motion all these kind of things that are going to happen. But,
Going down, they're going up to go.
And over here,
someone's opening the door, shutting on the fire. Okay? If no one's going to do anything, it's going to be off forever. And when somebody closes the door, it's like they keep turning on the knob, and then they go and close the door. Right? Otherwise, it's garnish.
Yeah, but if the boy, but if the Yid doesn't turn on the fire, he can open the door and close the door, nothing's going to happen.
That's true. But you got to go.
Okay, fine. So we have a way to explain like that. But I would tell you, my assumption is that the real thing is the Ramah, all these schools apply to Bishul just like by Pat. That's, I think, the simple understanding. And therefore that, halacha applies to, I don't have a reason not to. And, I mean, I've been told otherwise. My experience, this is what I told them, my speaking to other poskim, that's fine, it works for Bishul also. Okay, they quoted the names, I'm not going to say the names, of people who said that it only works for Pat, not for Bishul. I have heard otherwise, and I have no reason to think not like that. And I'm telling you, there's this not which I wrote. We'll wait to hear what they say back about it. There's this practical nafkamina, which is not going to be good news. I mean, according to them, they may have a hard time explaining why the chicken in their oven is going to be Bishul. Okay, thank you.